Before we get into the Saints, Nick, what do you make of the NFC? What have you made of the start here of the division as we enter another week of football?
Uh, Not very good, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of teams that I think are underperforming. I mean, the teams that are good, I think, are really good, but it's such a weird year. I think we're going to get to a point, and I wouldn't be surprised if 4 weeks from now we look back and say, wow, those first 4 weeks were garbage and they should be thrown out, and they really don't reflect how a lot of teams look or how a lot of teams are playing. The one exception being the Cowboys. I think they're going to be bad. They hired Mike McCarthy for some godforsaken reason in the year 2020. But, you know, I just think that there's a lot of weird stuff going on. There's so many teams allowing 30 points per game. I don't know where it's at after this week, but a week ago, I believe it was at 8. Wow. And over the last 14 years or whatever, there was less than, I think, 7 or 8 teams total that have allowed that in a total season. So offense is way up. It's shocking that defense is so bad because I think one of the things that I talked to Kenny Vaccaro before the season just about what he thought the advantages of no fans would be in stadiums, and he thought it was going to help defenses communicate more, be more complex, be more organized, and execute better. And, well, I think that's true for his Titans. I mean, it's definitely not true for the Saints, a veteran team, you know, that's playing together. And it's not true for a lot of teams around the league. So I think we're going to get to a point where, you know, things level out and we see who teams really are. But I don't think we know quite yet just because of how weird this season has been with no off season, the atmosphere, all that stuff.
So it's kind of fascinating hearing that, Nick. I don't think I realized that it was taking place to that extent on the NFL level because you see it on the college level as well right now. Offenses just seem light years ahead of the defenses in most areas. I mean, do you have a hypothesis, like how this came about? Do you have a guess or a hypothesis how this is happening on both levels?
I don't know. I mean, you know, watching the Saints, it's been the most mystifying thing about the team because they're a veteran team, and why aren't they able to execute? Why are they having these coverage busts? You know, I think for them, and this isn't a wide-ranging answer, but I think for them, for the Saints, one of the things you look at is this year is they're playing quarters coverage more than they ever have at any point, and it's like 7 snaps slower than cover one on the whole season. And, you know, previously that wasn't the case. You know, they were doing different things. So I think they're trying to introduce new things here, and it's not landing the way that they had hoped. But, you know, I think every year that there's a little bit of a catch-up time for defense. It's just so magnified this year. It's really hard to understand why it's happening to that level, especially because, like I said, I mean, I think that you thought atmospherically, and then, like, you know, you can hear more. And I think being able to time those snap counts and hear the cadence and all that stuff should be creating an advantage where I kind of going into the season thought the opposite was going to happen, where these defenses were going to be able to jump out on everybody and you know, it would just look a whole lot different. But the opposite is true. And again, I think at some point it's going to level out. Like, it's not going to keep going like this, but, you know, that communication advantage that you think would exist, like, it's just not there, and it's not doing anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a result of the inverse, right? Where now you have hard counts killing you, and I mean, the defense, they've been doing it for years. Maybe they just they don't even recognize the value that the energy they get from fans really is. Fascinating. I will say this though, fans or no fans, Marcus Davenport returned, and the pass rush was very effective. Nick, what did you learn in breaking down Davenport's return and what it meant for that pass rush as a whole?
Yeah, it's one game, but I think you can take some stuff from this one game against the Chargers and extrapolate it over the rest of the season, at least as far as forming some level of expectation of how things are going to look and how things are going to work. And him coming back right away, you know, Cam Jordan's getting doubled, much less. It's back around that, you know, 30% level where he's been for most of his career as far as, you know, seeing an extra blocker, a chip, something like that. And, you know, he comes out and gets 7 pressures and you know, you start looking at it, hey, why did this happen? And, you know, the protections just start looking a little bit different, and there's a little bit more attention being paid to the other side of the line. Davenport was only out there for 15 pass rushing snaps, but on those 15 snaps, he drew a double on 8 of them. One triple team. He drew a triple team on the play. I don't know if you guys remember it. I think it was in the third quarter. The deep pass, Marshawn Lattimore got beat off the line, and then Davis got a hit. I mean, if you look over, and it saved the touchdown, it was a game-changing play. If you look at the right side of that line, Davenport's drawing a triple team, and then, Davis just cuts through it and hits the lane and gets the quarterback hit. But on those 8 snaps where Davenport was doubled, he got one hit and he created pressure 4 other times for other people for the situation where they could get pressure. So he's a game-changing player. Like, it's not always necessarily going to be, showing up in sack numbers, pressure numbers, but his presence changes the way things look. And the effect of that on Cam Jordan early in the season, I think you saw. I don't think it's entirely because, there's no Davenport, so Cam's super dependent on him. I think Cam also got off to a little bit of a slow start. The attention he was paid was outrageous. In a couple games, it was over 40% double teams, which is just unfathomable. I mean, that just shouldn't be able to happen. But I think having Davenport back out there will help just level things out and keep things normal. And you see Cam picking up, getting back up to speed. And I think everything is going to settle down and they're going to look a little bit more normal. I mean, their coverage has to be much, much better for them to get everything out of that front 4. But at least last week you saw a step in the right direction. And, Davenport definitely did play a big part in that.
What impact do you expect Mike Thomas to have on the offense this week? Or the game, really?
I think it's going to be huge. I mean, that's the guy. Their tempo hasn't looked good. Their first 15 plays, the scripted plays, which is where usually the genius of this offense shows up. Right now, currently, Breeze is on pace just on those first 15 plays of the games, what he's produced so far. By the end of the season, he's on pace to only have 500 yards within those plays. Last year, he missed how many games? 5 games, and he ended up with 700. A typical year since 2017. It's over 1,000 within those first 15. So, I don't think that's a result of the play calling either. I think it's you don't have your first read. It's not there a lot of the times, and Mike's that guy. And I think dropping him in there, right now it's just like it's weird that we're talking about the offense like this because they're averaging 30 points per game, but it's just like so rigid. It's not like there's no rhythm to it. It's classical music. It's not jazz. Like they're playing off the sheet, and there's a sound and it gets you there, but it's just not what it's supposed to be. And I think getting Mike out there is going to help with that, and you're going to see that flow, and it's going to be these quick plays and the yards are flowing, and everything just looks a whole lot better. And you're going to see Brees look a lot more comfortable too. I think we're well past the point of the ridiculous conversation about him being done after 2 games or whatever. I think he's proven to be, good enough. Last week, the first half was pretty iffy, but he bounced back. He settled in. They made adjustments. Things look better, and they were good to go. I think once you have Mike back in there, I think the offense is going to look a whole lot better.
Yeah, everybody's so stiff. He's going to come in there like snapping, zoot suit on, ready to get the jazz going. I love that analogy. Nick, so help me out because you watch so much film. Like, in what ways, and I think I'd forgotten how incredible a healthy Alvin Kamara is, but in what ways do a healthy Alvin Kamara and a healthy Mike Thomas play off of each other in terms of stressing the defense?
Man, both those guys are healthy on the field. I mean, you got probably 2 of the 10 best offensive players in the NFL. And, I think just both of them being out there, the way they get covered, the attention they draw is going to open stuff up for everybody. You split them out and, someone's going to get super, like a really good look, a good advantageous look on every snap. And it might not necessarily be one of those guys, but, you have to put a safety or a defensive back of some sort on Alvin. So if you're doing that, who's covering Jared Cook? What kind of coverage is Emmanuel Sanders seeing? Traquan Smith will have a one-on-one he can exploit. So there's going to be a great look and easy read on every single play. And, that's how they built this offense. They've over the last few years, really worked to build a structure around Brees to make things easier on him. And once all those pieces are out there, I think everything is going to look a whole lot easier and he's going to look smoother. And, those 2 guys are the foundation of the offense. And that's why they got paid.
Nick, what have you made of Andrews Pete in his short return back to the offensive line?
The contract, I think if you look at the contract, I would say that I wouldn't agree with it. I understand why they signed him. They wanted to get rid of Larry Warford. You let him go. You have two guards. Two holes you need to fill a guard if you don't bring Pete back. So I understand why they brought him back. I think if you watch this game, I know that there was a lot of disagreement with not starting Cesar Ruiz, but then once Cesar Ruiz came into the game, I think if you were really paying attention to what happened on the offensive line and we're actually watching the results instead of following just a talking point, I think you see why Ruiz didn't start. He made it quite evident. He struggled a little bit in this game. I thought he played good against Detroit, but it's clear that there's still some growth there that he needs to make. But, that's not to say that Pete's playing well. It's just Pete's playing better than another guy that isn't fully up to speed, who will eventually be fully up to speed. But the thing with Pete, he doesn't do himself any favors with his style of play because it's so boom or bust. And when he blocks somebody, it's there. You notice it. You see it. Wow, Pete, that was a huge block. He just pancaked this guy. And it's just, his approach, he just tries to kill guys. But then when he doesn't land that hit and somebody counters, you see him, he's down on the ground looking back at Breeze, and it just looks terrible. And you notice his mistakes. You notice his success. There's no, subtleness to anything he does. And I think it draws your eye to it. And it just, again, it looks horrible. But, I think to earn the contract, he needs to play better. The thing is too, though, that nobody talks about, and I'm not making excuses for the guy, but this is never part of the conversation. Yeah, he gets hurt all the time, but he never really misses any time. He's back out there so quick.
Mm-hmm.
He has an ankle sprain. He plays the next week. A lot of guys don't do that. He has a desire to play. And, I think that part of the equation is a big reason why this coaching staff evaluates him and values him a little bit differently than, the public. I think that grittiness, that desire to play, those are things that Peyton and the Saints love. And Pete has those traits. It's just, the play isn't quite there with what he's being paid, I don't think.
Sorry to force the one-word answer, but we're crunched for time. Did the Saints ever play a game in Tiger Stadium this season?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, man.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick Underhill, brought to you by former LSU Tiger and current attorney Chris Barrett. We'll close out hour 2 next.